So I'm going to make a short movie to short movie. I'm not going to make a short movie at all. Make a short video to it might be a movie. You never know. A short video to fix the contract test that I had broken before. So the mistake that I'd made here with the contract tests was I was just passing in an instance of the movie service interface, and then I'm making assertions based on that service, assuming that service has been set up according to the data that we expect it to have. And obviously there's no way of the tests knowing if they've been set up, if it's been set up in that way. And there's no way, given that I'm now calling the contract tests function from here, there's no way for me to know at this point what the expectations of this class, no way for me to know what the expectations of the tests are here when I'm calling it here. So the thing that I need to define here is a function, basically, rather than kind of passing in a service. I need to pass in a function that will accept some test data, and then that function will be responsible for configuring the test or the subject under test. So that's what we can do. That's what we can do here. So what I'm going to do is make it so that when we call, if I go down here and say something along the lines of const service equals create system under test. If I do something like that, no, I'm going to call it create movie service. I'm going to call it create test movie service, in fact, to make it explicit. And I'm going to pass in the data that I think is needed here. So that will tell whoever's defining this function what data they have access to, and then it'll be up to the definer of that function to work out what to do with it. So I will also take that and define a parameter type here. So I'll export that as create test movie service params, and we'll make that number. That'll be a number, that'll be a number, and that will be a string. And then up here I will replace that with create test movie service, and rather than being just an instance of the movie service, it will be a function that returns that movie service, and it's a function that takes some params which are of type create movie service test movie service params. Because of that, I don't have access to the service at this point, so I might just add in here a name property as an argument as well, and we'll make that a string. And then I'll just replace that back with name. So then here I can say const service equals create test movie service, and that's, so I'm not going to pass any data in. Am I going to? Yes, I'm going to pass in the movie ID. We do that. In fact, let's put that as ID as an ID. Should be fine, and that's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4. Because of that, I'm not passing in any other data here, so I'm going to make these optional. That then works for that. Const service equals create test movie service, and that's going to be taking in that data. So that's now, that now looks the way I think it should. And now I'm going to have to go back to here and I'm going to have to fix this. So this now needs to define a function that's going to return this. And at the very least, that's going to need to define some parameters. We need a name there as well. So let's call this movie service because that's what the class is. Why is that identified? Of course. Expected 2 arguments and got 3. What have I done wrong here? What have I messed up? Oh no, that was right, wasn't it? That was... idiot. I've done that wrong, haven't I? No, I've done that right. What have I done wrong here? What am I not seeing? What is that complaining about there? Of course. Idiot. Idiot. So I can put that parameter there, that will work. And so here I need to configure this. So what I can do, because I've got my because I've got all the data that I need, I can basically copy that, put that in there, and this doesn't need to be a stub at this point. It just needs to be a function that returns the data that's expected from the contract test. So I can get rid of that, I can get rid of that, I can do that, async, and then that just needs to be replaced with params.id. That's going to be replaced with params.name, params.votes, and I could, because these properties may not be there, I could just kind of give it dummy values there. I don't think that's necessarily going to be I don't think that's going to necessarily kind of make any difference here. It doesn't matter what ID I put in there. In fact, we could just put in there 999 to make it really obvious that it's something different. And there, that's going to be 9999, and that's going to be params dot what was it? CMDB rating. Let's go or 0. And now, maybe, if we now pass in the instance of the movie database and that, now we may well find, perhaps, there we go. So contract tests are back passing again. So I'm just going to go over what I've done again, what I've done there. So the contract tests weren't working because I was making assumptions in the tests about what was configured in the service. So I was expecting this data to exist. There was no reason for me to expect that data to exist because I hadn't told, at no point had I told the service object which was being passed in why it should be expecting this, or that I was expecting it. So what we needed to do was create a function that we could then pass into the contract test object that would allow the service to be configured. And the data that we pass to that is just all of the data that's needed by the system under test to configure itself so that it can meet the demands of the tests. We can show, note that here, because I've kind of built out the movie service to now have an instance of this TMDB service, so I need to configure these dependencies within this create test movie service kind of function. I need to define those. Had I just hard coded the had I been relying on an array of movies being kind of available to the movie service that already contained the movie database votes and that kind of stuff, I wouldn't need to do this. I'd just define my array of data, pass that into my service, and then return that. So this function needs to know about how this particular movie service is configured. So if there are dependencies, they need to be configured here. If I'd created an instance of the movie service that didn't have any dependencies, I wouldn't need to configure those. So that means the contract tests don't know anything about how the movie service interface thing is designed, how it's been implemented. It could just be hard-coded data. It could be separated out with kind of separate dependencies as we've got it here. The contract tests don't need to know about that. There's nothing in here about the TMDB interface, nothing in here about the MovieDB interface. It's just about the movie service interface. And likewise here, we don't know about the contract tests themselves. We just know that we're given some data and we need to configure our service and any dependencies appropriately with that data and return it so that can be then used in the tests. So now hopefully we're back to a point where the contract tests are fixed. We've got tests for our movie service, and the last two things we need to worry about are the implementations of our TMDB interface and also our MovieDB interface. So let's commit that. I'll commit it properly this time. Fixed contract tests.